And good, bright, and beautiful morning. Sorry for a bit of this late start, but actually, I couldn't see the live stream, although it looks like the live stream has been going for 2.5 minutes, which is what it has been going, but it wasn't showing up on my side, so I had to kind of do a little refresh on the computer. But welcome to Easy Bible Study this morning. I am Kimberly Mann, and we are in Genesis chapter 25, and we are finishing up the life of Abraham. And so excited about the life of Abraham and getting this finished and moving on to the next iteration of God working through establishing his people of course, what's really cool about Genesis is that the whole thing is about beginnings. And so we're seeing mostly beginnings and talking more about that and then rather than endings. But today we're finishing up Abraham's life. And we know we just saw the beginning of Isaac's marriage yesterday. And that's very exciting. So let's get into this because don't worry, Abraham, he did finish strong. And let's get into it today. I look forward to sharing this with you. And we are in Genesis chapter 25. So grab your Bible, grab your notebook, and I'll be right back after this.
You can have all this world. Give me Jesus.
And if you do find value in my content today, do me a favor, click like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any of my content. I did just publish a bunch of shorts this morning, and there are shorts 7 days of the week. So we put out shorts 7 days of the week for this channel, and make sure that you have something every single day of God's Word to carry you through. On Saturdays and Sundays, I don't go live. I just do my own personal Bible study that's separate from this channel. And so that's a totally different thing. But yeah, if you're ever interested in any of that. The other thing I will mention is that I do have a Patreon page where you can subscribe. I have 3 levels of subscription for Patreon. One of them gives you access to a private Q&A, the other once a month, and then the second level gives you access to all the notes and the Q&A and a couple of other features as well. And then the third level gets you something really cool, because I am planning to have a live Bible conference quarterly. And if you are a Patreon level at the top level, you are automatically get a ticket to that live Bible conference, no extra charge to you, plus all the notes, plus everything else. Plus, you actually get a Spiro Zodhiates Bible, the same one that I use, and you get a Rocketbook and a Rocketbook notebook with the ability to write your own notes and carry along and share those back. And of course, the community that goes with Patreon as well. So, not pitching it because of products, but I know that I've had people reach out and say, we'd love to support. How can we support? So here's how you can support. So check out the link in the description below if you are interested in joining me on Patreon. Yeah, so that's something we just set up recently when we hit enough subscribers for people to start asking for those things, people to start asking how they can support this ministry and where this ministry is going. Well, this ministry is going in a place I didn't expect. So we're going to be doing an online, as I said already. Actually, let's take this away. So, oops, not that. We'll take that away. There we go. So this ministry is going, so we are already going to be doing a quarterly online Bible conference. So I've already told you about that a little bit. But one of the other things that it looks like are in the plan is possibly doing a women's retreat / conference, at least annually at this point. So where that is, what that is, how that looks, don't know yet. But whenever those details come out, I will let you know. And tickets will be available for that. It will also be live streamed, and you'll be able to do a live stream ticket to those events as well. But there's nothing quite like being in person with a group of Christians, being able to fellowship with one another and discuss God's word and break things down. So that is what we're looking at, the possibility. And I'd like to do it. I am in the Midwest. I'd kind of like to do it in the Midwest and possibly in the summer and maybe at a campground, because it feels to me very much like that would be a really cool space to be able to hold something like this. So people could bring their campers and we could block off a whole bunch of things, and it wouldn't be like at the height of season in the Midwest. That make it easier for us to plan it with only 3-4 months ahead of time. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to some of these things that have just people have just started asking for certain things, and we're just going to let it grow, and we're going to grow it and grow it and grow it in the way that God would like it to grow. So that's kind of those announcements. So if you want to know anything more about that, you need to join on Patreon, because Patreons are the ones who get first access to all of the things, all of the notifications. They are the first notice of all of the well, not just the levels, but VIPs get first access to all the tickets. And then of course the levels down get next level access, etc., to any of the events. So yeah, so go ahead and join me on Patreon. And it is just Easy Bible Study, so that's really easy to find. We've kept the same name, which is awesome. So yeah, Easy Bible Study on Patreon as well. All right, let's get into God's Word here. Give me just a half a second to fix up. There we go. Unfortunately, I have to shout at Google in order to get the studio lights on. All right, we are getting into this. So we are in Genesis chapter 25, verses 1 through 18. Let us get started today. Here we go. Then again, Abraham took a wife, and her name was Keturah. And she bare him Zimram, and Jokshan, and Medan, and Midian, and Ishbak, and Shua. And Joksan begat Sheba and Dedan, and the sons of Dedan were Asherim, and Letushim, and Leminim. And the sons of Midian, Ephah, and Epher, and Hanak, and Abida, and Eldah. All these were the children of Keturah. And Abraham gave all that he had unto Isaac. But unto the sons of the concubines which Abraham had, Abraham gave gifts, sent them away from Isaac his son, while he yet lived, eastward unto the east country. And these are the days of the years of Abraham's life which he lived, 160 years. Then Abraham gave up the ghost, and died in a good old age, an old man and full of years, and was gathered to his people. And his sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah, in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar the Hittite, which is before Mamre. In the field which Abraham purchased of the sons of Heth, there was Abraham buried, and Sarah his wife. And it came to pass after the death of Abraham that God blessed his son Isaac, and Isaac dwelt by the well Lahai Roi. Now these are the generations of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar the Egyptian, Sarah's handmaid, bare unto Abraham. And these are the names of the sons of Now these are the generations of Ishmael, sorry. Let's go back to that. And these are the names of the sons of Ishmael by their names, according to their generations. The firstborn of Ishmael, Nebajoth, and Kedar, and Abiel, and Mibshem, and Mishma, and Duma, and Massa, Hadar, and Tema, Jetur, Naphish, and Kedemah. These are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their names by their own towns, and by their castles. 12 princes according to their nations. And these are the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years. And he gave up the ghost and died, and was gathered unto his people. And they dwelt from Havilah unto Shur, that is before Egypt, as thou goest towards Assyria. And he died in the presence of all his brethren. All right. Now we've stopped here for a reason, because even though not a lot is covered in this passage, or a lot of maybe say what you might consider interesting things. But if you remember that, so first of all, a lot of people are not aware of the fact that Abraham had another wife, shall we say. He calls her a wife, But then later on, it refers to concubines and the children of his concubines, because Keturah's children did not receive his inheritance. That all went to Isaac. Now, it sounds to me, though, like a lot of them, like they got a lot of benefit. I think there were gifts given to them, as it says. It says, and Abraham gave gifts and sent them away from Isaac his son. So Abraham lived long enough that these children became adults, and he gave them very large gifts himself, but everything else went to Isaac. Like the majority of what he had went to Isaac. But he gave them gifts and sent them away when they became adults and said, this land is going to be for Isaac. God has promised it to him and everything, so you might want to go find your own space. So I don't think he kind of sent them away in the way that some people might think. All right, so let's look at verse 1. So we're going to start here in verse 1. That we're going to talk about the fact that Abraham remarried okay, and her name was Keturah. Now, God does not seem to have any condemnation for him marrying again after Sarah. I think the only condemnation that God had toward him sleeping with Ishmael's mother and doing that is because he was forcing that promise of God. God had promised him a son off of which he would build many nations, or which he would build a great nation, rather. And when Abraham and Sarah kind of forced it through Ishmael, through having, oh, goodness. Hold on. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even have, in this passage, what I thought was interesting, I wanted to try and find her name. I couldn't remember her name off the top of my head. That's crazy. Because God does take care of her, and he does, hold on, let me go back and remind myself of her. Hagar, that's right, Hagar and Ishmael. So Hagar, God does condemn his relationship with Hagar, but what he says to him is, I'm not going to punish your relationship. I'm not going to punish Ishmael because you did because you did something with Hagar that you shouldn't have. He did send Hagar and Ishmael away, but Ishmael was already over the age of 13 at that point. He was possibly already an adult when he sent them away. And it sounds like he sent them away because when they go away, Hagar then hooks up Ishmael with a wife. So it's not like they are young. It's not like Ishmael is young at this point. And this is after Isaac was born. So we know that Ishmael was at least 13, maybe 15, 16 years old at that point. We don't even know how old he was for sure. All right. But we do know that he was sent away. And after he was sent away, and Abraham never married Hagar. She was just his wife's handmaiden, which made her children which made her son his child, obviously. But then we get into verse 20, chapter 25, and this is, I named this one All My Children, Abraham's, that is, because he has a lot of children. He marries Keturah, and so if we see in verse 2, Abraham's other children are many. Now, Isaac is the son of promise. He is the son who was promised that they would make a great nation out of. But Keturah has children, and these children are still blessed by God and still given a lot of things. However, what you'll find is that some of these children actually went on to create nations that gave the Israelites a lot of trouble. So, and we'll see that when we get into like 1st and 2nd Samuel and things like that, you'll see that some of these they become actually great nations. But she actually gave him, so let's name them out because they are all listed in, so they are listed in verse 2 here. So let's name them. We've got Zimran, and Jokshan, Medan, Midian, and this is one of the ones that gave the Israelites trouble later on, Ishbak, and Shua. Now, in my notes, I've spread these out a little bit because I'm going to also put underneath here, because verses 3 and 4, so we're going to say verses 2 through 4, because verses 3 and 4 tell us their children. So we've got Jokshan, and he had Sheba and Dedan, or Dedan. And then the sons of Dedan. So we have sons for Dedan as well. And they are Ashurim, Letushim, and Lumen. Leumin. Leummim. All right. So we know that Jokshan had children. And then we go on to Midian. Midian had children as well. So under Midian had loads of children. Let's see here. We don't see Midian's great children. I mean, the children after it. The grandkids. We just see Midian's children. Ephah, Ephah, and Epher, Epher, and Hanoch, Hanoch, and Abida, and I may go back in and rewrite this section, and Elda. So when we're looking at this, as far as grandchildren go, Abraham had a ton of grandchildren. He actually had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you count Isaac and Ishmael, he had 8 children altogether. And so here we have all of these children, and then Jokshan had 2 children, and then Jokshan's son had 3 children. Midian had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we know for sure that, so far we know that Abraham had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 grandchildren. So already we know that there are 7 grandchildren for Abraham. Now we're going on to verse 5. It says, and Abraham gave all that he had unto Isaac, but unto the sons of the concubines which Abraham had, Abraham gave gifts and sent them away from Isaac his son, while he yet lived eastward unto the east country. So this is basically saying what Abraham, so verses 5 and 6 here, what Abraham did with his inheritance, basically. With his wealth. Isaac got it all except for the gifts Abraham gave his other children. Okay, so we know that Abraham gave gifts to his other children, but we don't know what they were. We do know that some of these, it does not seem that any of these children were wanting, though. It seems like he gave them generous gifts and they went away. Probably gave them lots of sheep and oxen. That's the kind of thing that's pretty easy to replenish if you want to. You just let your sheep and oxen do what they will do naturally, and you're going to get a lot more of them. So, so then, yeah, so that, that keeps going. So Abraham gave his other children. And then we go on to verses 7. So he lived. So then we talk about verse 7 and 8. Abraham dies. At the age of, what does it say? 100, 60, so that's 60, and 15 years. So that is 175. So he lived to 175. So keep in mind, Sarah died when she was 137 years old. So he was 10 years older than her. That means he was 147 when she died. So when he took Keturah for a wife, right after that, he still lived for another 25, 26, 27, 28 years after that. So his children by Keturah were probably already completely grown before he died. So then Abraham gave up the ghost and died in a good old age and an old man full of years and was gathered to his people. And then, of course, it says in verses 9 that Isaac and Ishmael. So it's interesting because Isaac and Ishmael came back. Isaac was always there, but Ishmael came back, it looks like, to honor his father when he passed. Because it says, and his sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah. So that Machpelah or Machpelah, however you want to pronounce it, depends on whether you're pronouncing it in Hebrew or not. That one that we showed the other day that hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at, because it does still there's a palace of Machpelah that is built around the caves, and you can actually go like a tourist destination in Israel even to this day, which is amazing. This is something I did not realize until we started going through this, that it was still in existence. And so it is the oldest existing structure from the book of Genesis that we are aware of. So those caves are still there. And they are protected by a palace that Herod built thousands of years later surrounding it. But his sons, Isaac and Ishmael, buried him there. So they came back, and it just talks about where the cave came from. So verses 9 through 10, basically, we see Isaac and Ishmael, but not his other sons, it looks like, buried him in the cave he had bought for Sarah. Okay, same place. So they are both buried there. And you're going to see that there are others buried there as well as time goes on. All right. And then verse 11 here. Verse 11, it just tells us that Isaac dwelt by the well, lived by the well, Lahairoi. Now, we know this is in the south, but we don't have this exactly on our map. So let me pull up the map. All we know, though, is that we do know that this is somewhere down here south of Beersheba. All right? Because even our Sodom and Gomorrah map does not show Lahairoi. I don't believe. Nope. So we don't know exactly where that is, except for we are told that it is in the south. So it's definitely going to be south of Beersheba. And remember, Hebron is where the burial place is. So the burial place is in Hebron, which is right here on our map. And it says that Isaac lived in the south. So it's definitely going to be south of Beersheba because they lived in Beersheba. So that's where Abraham pretty much hung out, was in Beersheba, and he was buried in Hebron where the cave is, and it says that Isaac lived in the south. So we'll see that later on coming up. Now, the next thing that we're going on to is we're going to talk about Ishmael's family. Now, Ishmael's son. So verses 12 through 16, basically 12 through 16. Ishmael's sons. All right. The names of the sons of Ishmael by their names according to their generations. Nebajoth, Kedar, Nebajoth, Kedar, Abiel, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadar, Tema, Jetur, Naphish, and Kedema. Now, the reason this is important is because if you remember, back when Hagar was pushed out, God made her a promise and said, I'm going to give you 12 sons. You're going to have 12 tribes. He's going to have 12 princes, even is what it says. So even though Isaac is the founder of the nation of Israel, Ishmael is what most other, most Muslims who were born in the Middle East, and they are of the descendancy that they are originally of Middle Eastern descent, most of them would actually consider, if they're not Egyptian, but most of the Syrians that are in existence today, most of the Iraqis, most of the Iranians, most of those people groups would consider themselves to be of the line of Ishmael. Because out of Ishmael came great nation as well. So while Isaac created the nation of Israel, there are many, many, many Muslims from that area, from that region in the Middle East, that would trace their lineage and trace their descendancy back to Ishmael, because Ishmael had such a large amount of children. He was given his 12 princes. Ishmael's sons, the 12 princes, were, and we're going to spell them out here on our notebook. All right, so we're going to write them out. Let's see here. Is Nebajoth. Be helpful if I can actually spell Nebajoth with an N instead of an M. All right. Nebajoth. That's one. Kedar. Adbeel. Mibsam. With an M. Mishma. Duma. Massa. Hadar. We had Kedar before, and now we have Hadar. Tema. And there is some thought that maybe Hadar and Tema may have been so Mishma and Duma and Massa, Hadar and Tema, the fact that they have ands between them makes people think that maybe there were some twins in there, but there's no indication that says it for sure. But that maybe Mibsam and Mishma were twins, and maybe Duma and Massa were twins, or maybe Hadar and Tema were twins, because then it goes into Jetur, Naphish, and Kedema, which is very odd to lay it out that way. That's just people supposing. We don't know at all whether that is true. So that is not me saying that there were twins. But twins definitely run in their families. And we'll see that coming up here with Isaac. All right, and Kedema. All right, and then we're on here on this. These are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their names by their towns, by their castles, 12 princes according to their nations. It even says this very clearly. These are 12 princes, and these are their names by the names of their castles. So there were actually castles in the ancient world. And actually, let me see if I can find this, because we're not really going to talk about this probably ever again. So let's do a quick Google search here. Map of the castles of the princes of Ishmael's descendants. Let's see if they have a map of those. They're referred to as Ishmaelites later on, and I'm not seeing any there. Blessing of Ishmael. Trying to show more images here. It doesn't actually show. I'm looking for a map, and I actually don't see a map that actually shows these names. Let me see this one. Oh, here we go. Here's some. It says God loves Ishmael, which is absolutely true. I mean, this doesn't have all of them, but it looks like a lot of them went, wait, where did I see them? Well, it says Midianites, but the Midianites, those are from Keturah's children. Maybe this is... Yeah, I'm not seeing... I mean, I see Hadar. I see Mishma. I see something that says Tema with a Y, which could be the same Tema that we see here. But I'm not seeing like Jetur. Oh, I see there's Yetur up at the top, which could be Jetur. Naphthish. Yeah, this is not... Unfortunately... These are the southern Arabian Semitic kingdoms, basically. So this would be the whole section. Let me see if I can grab this picture. Open image in a new tab and share this with you guys. Just as a quick... Let's throw it into here. And actually, you know what? You can just do this one. We'll change it to be a web browser. Let's show you this map so that you can see what I'm seeing. And this does make sense biblically, based on what we've been told. All right. So let me expand the map as much as possible, but you do need to see the whole map. All right. Let's do this. Let's go to this. And this, you still may not be able to see me. Oh, that's why. Let's crop this over. There we go. Now you can see me. So what you can see here on this map is you can see that... okay, so if you look at the top here, you see Yetur, which could be Jeter. Because a lot of J's are Y's with... like a lot of the pronunciations, Yetur, it's pronounced Ye. And so because of that, oftentimes in our modern languages, they are spelled with a Y versus a J to differentiate. So you've got Yetur here. You've got Duma right here in the middle. You've got Kedma. Okay. That's one of Ishmael's. In fact, here, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to zoom in a little bit even more and pull this down. I'm going to crop it over. Crop this way over. And pull this down so you can see this a little bit more. Hopefully you can see that a little clearer. And see, you've got Kedar, you've got Kedema, you've got Dumar, you've got Hedar, Masa, which that one doesn't seem to be one of his children per se, unless that is Mibsam was renamed to Masa or something. But you do have Mishma here. You have Yema or Tema, which we have Tema. So far we've got quite a few of them right here. And down, and some of them actually went, so we've got Medina, which is another tribe. And then if it goes all the way down, but it all goes down into this area. And you can see even there's Havilah, which we talked about earlier, one of the descendants of some of the others, and Shiva and Khatan. So we've got through this whole, what they call the southern Semite tribes, basically. And you can see, yep, the ancient seashore, which is not as much as it is now. But you can see all of these, basically, God gave Israel the land right next to, God gave Israel that land right next to, between the Jordan Sea and the Mediterranean. But you can see that God settled Ishmael on the other side of the Jordan, out a little bit, and that's where they settled him, and that's where he and his children ended up living, is that, and spreading out into the south a little bit. So they weren't that far away from Israel. They were still all in the same region. So it's not a surprise that Ishmael came back to bury his dad. And then it says here, so he had his children, that was through verse 16. And then in verse 17, and these are the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years. So Ishmael lived to be 137. So Ishmael lived to 137. Let's see here. And he gave up the ghost and died and was gathered unto his people. And they dwelt from Havilah, as we showed you on the map. Let me go back to that so we can see that. Let's go back there. So, see there? Havilah on the side. So they dwelt from Havilah, it says, unto Shur. Let's see if we can find Shur on this map. And it doesn't actually show Shur. They dwelt from Havilah unto Shur, that is before Egypt. So basically from Havilah all the way over here towards Egypt. So all the way over, right before you get to Egypt is what it's basically saying. That is before Egypt, as thou goest towards Assyria. And he died in the presence of all his brethren. So what's interesting is you see that he's here. He's filling this whole region that is Iran, Iraq, not quite Syria. Syria is a little bit further north, so my apologies. But this Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, this whole area on this side of the Persian Gulf, this is where the Ishmaelites were. And it says that he was gathered unto his people. When Ishmael died, he was gathered unto his people. It just means that he was buried with his people. So he was buried in that region. And you know what? I'm going to do a quick Google search here because I'm fascinated by this idea now. And let's try this and say, do we know where Ishmael is buried? And it says, according to Muslim tradition, Ismail is buried next to the Kaaba in Mecca. Okay, so he's buried in Mecca, under the area known as here Ismail, which is a semicircular wall, according to Find a Grave. The Book of Mormon says something different. I actually think I would trust Muslim tradition because the Muslim people came from Ishmael. So that is where they came from originally. Well, I mean, no, people say, well, the Muhammad, but actually that was later on. But the children of Ishmael, I would trust Muslims to know better than the Book of Mormon, which was a man in the 1800s in America who didn't know anything about the Middle East. Yeah. So Ishmael's burial, we think that the Mormons think that he's buried in Yemen, and Muslims think he is buried in Mecca. All right, and if you don't know where Mecca is, it is off the Red Sea. It's officially known as Makkah al-Mukarramah. It's a city in western Saudi Arabia. All right, located in Hejaz region. It's the holiest city for Islam. And so Mecca is like, if you go halfway down the Red Sea, That's where he's supposedly buried. Now, Yemen is in the southern part of that, so that's why some people are saying he's buried in Yemen, but it looks like he's buried in Saudi Arabia according to Muslim tradition. All right? So he's gathered unto his people, which means that his people or his children gathered him in, and so basically Saudi Arabia is where the Ishmaelites lived, and somewhere into Iraq. Sorry, I apologize, not so much in Iran, but in Iraq and Jordan, in that region, is where all the Ishmaelites hung out, and they were. So he lived to 137 years old, and according to Muslim tradition, is buried in Mecca, which I think is more likely because he had an Egyptian wife. It's not surprising if he was over on the Egyptian side of things. That actually makes a lot of sense to me. But I mean, there's no way to know for sure, but we do know that he was buried with his people. And so that is where we end that. And the reason we're ending there is because that is going to be all the discussion we pretty much have about Abraham's children until we get to Judges, when some of those children's tribes start giving problems to the Israelites, basically. And so Isaac's twins boys are going to be coming up next. We're going to talk about Isaac and his progeny. And so far, Abraham has quite a few grandchildren. He's got, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then all of Ishmael's sons are his grandchildren, 10. So he's got 22 grandchildren so far, and we haven't even gotten to Isaac yet. So you can see these nations are already starting to form, and this was the promise that God gave, was that he was going to make of him a great nation, and he's actually making multiple nations out of Abraham. So hopefully this has been interesting. It's been much more just historical and factual today. Not a lot of important theological things, but it's important to know about these tribes because they do have an impact later on. We need to know who they are, where they came from, because that will help you understand when you get to the book of Judges and Joshua what's happening here and what the children of Israel are doing when they go into their promised land. So that's really, really important to know. Anyway, thanks for joining me. On Monday, we are going to start in Genesis. We're going to pick up where we are in Genesis 25 on verse 19. And we're going to go now. Now, Abraham is done. He's passed. He's been buried. So is Ishmael. He's passed. He's been buried. And now we're going to focus on Isaac and the Israelites for the rest of this time primarily. All right. So I look forward to seeing you Monday when we jump back into Genesis. And bye for now.
You can have all this world. Give me Jesus. When I am alone, oh, when I am alone, when I am alone, give me Jesus, give me Jesus.